Welcome to the Delvin Cox Experience, the podcast in which each week I'm on a one-man mission to unite our culture through diversity. I'm your host, Delvin Cox, and with me on the podcast is a special guest, someone who's
Hey y'all.
been on it. See, she already knows. Someone who's on here before and who was, how do I say this? Critically acclaimed.
I wouldn't say that.
I would say that.
No one has said that.
Plenty of people have said that.
No one has said that, y'all. Like literally nobody.
Said that. Plenty of people have slid my DMs, asking me who was that. She's awesome. She's amazing. Attorney Anna's back on the podcast. How you doing, Anna?
Hey y'all. I'm good. Thank you for having me. Hey everybody.
Also, Anna owns a crossbow. Just thought y'all should know that.
I do in fact own a crossbow. Do not pull up. I have not mastered it, but once I do, that's it.
There you go. As always, we like to start the podcast off with the 5 for 5. 5 questions, 5 answers to get the ball rolling. Anna, are you ready?
I don't know. Because last time you tricked me.
Well, you're going to get tricked again.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
I think.
Question 1.
Okay.
Give me your top 5 favorite cartoons as a kid.
Oh, okay. Let me think. As a kid, because I have favorite cartoons as an adult. All right. As a kid, what was my favorite cartoons? SpongeBob is definitely in top 5.
Okay.
Love SpongeBob.
GOAT tier.
I'm gonna say Hey Arnold is definitely top 5.
Football Head. Yeah, I'm feeling it.
Football Head is definitely top 5. I'm gonna say the Proud Family is also top 5.
They said you look like Penny Proud, so okay.
Come on, Penny Proud. Okay, let me see. What did I say? SpongeBob. Who did I say? SpongeBob.
Hey Arnold.
Hey Arnold. Proud Family.
Did you watch the reboot yet?
I have not watched the reboot. My homegirl just told me literally yesterday to watch it. I'm gonna watch it.
It's pretty good.
I'm gonna watch it. So let me see. That Kim Possible was a good one. Like,
okay.
Very girl boss. I love Kim Possible. And I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing an obvious one because I'm just overlooking it. But the ones that come to mind are Cat Dog, which I liked. Fantastic. I loved Cat Dog. I loved Kids Next Door.
Kids Next Door is dope.
Well, I always thought I was number 5. And I thought I was a mix of number 5 and number 1. Rugrats.
Rugrats is dope.
And I knew Rugrats was dope because, you know, they had Maya and 112 make a song for the movie. Like, that was crazy. With Mace. That's when I knew.
Yeah.
Okay. That's got to be it. I can't think of any other ones that I'm just missing.
Those are dope choices.
Am I missing some?
It depends. I don't want to age you. Depends on what generation you grew up in.
Okay, let's not do that.
Yeah, let's not age you. I think your choices were good enough where we don't have like a whole
where you know what I'm talking about still.
Yes.
Like you like yeah. I know them. Okay, all right.
You could be your choice was good enough where you could be either 20, like you could be or a little bit over, a little bit under. See, so I think we should leave it at that.
You said 20?
Yes.
Oh no, I'm way over that, but I'll take it.
To tell nobody that.
Sorry,
I'm trying to cover it up for you.
Y'all didn't hear that. Let's just act like you didn't hear that. What are we even talking about? Next question.
All right, I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
I've asked the last 2 guests on this podcast this question.
Okay.
So hopefully you didn't hear it.
I did not hear it.
Good. She's a busy woman.
Unfortunately.
My question for you is, when you think of the Fruit of the Looms logo, what do you think of?
Grapes.
Okay, what else? Like, what do you like in your head? What you think the Fruit of the Looms logo is?
I think of grapes in a bowl with an apple and Fruit of the Looms. That's all I think of.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm glad you said that. Because
Why?
apparently it's a Mandela effect thing.
What you mean?
Okay. Me and some other people, and I guess you can count you on this too. Remember the Fruit of the Loom logo as like the grapes, the apples, and all that stuff inside in a cornucopia or bowl or something like that.
Right.
Fruit of the Loom say it was never in a cornucopia or bowl.
What is Fruit of the Loom saying?
It was just out there. Just like
No, that's a lie.
It wasn't in nothing. It was just the fruits and stuff all together.
You remember how when everybody said, "Is it asked Lloyd if it was 5-2 or 5-2?"
Yes.
Same thing. Like, we don't believe you either way. We just don't believe you. We've already decided as a community. It could be either because he's very small. So we've decided it's fine too.
I agree. See, we're on the same page. I like that. Question number 3.
Okay.
If you can bring back any artist who's passed away to do one more album, and let me clarify this. It'll be them doing the album in their prime. It's not like, okay, this person's it's not like this
Okay, I was gonna ask that. Like, are they gonna come back to like a Scandal? Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Is it gonna be one of them?
Yeah. So I'll put it this way. If it's Michael Jackson, you're gonna get Thriller Michael Jackson. If it's Whitney Houston, you're gonna get Whitney Houston in her prime. Who are you picking?
Dang.
Because see, if I say they come back and do one more album, you're gonna obviously think of the last album they did. Like, oh, that album wasn't that great.
You know what? I'm gonna say Aaliyah. And the reason I'm gonna say Aaliyah is because I feel like the people you just named, while I would love to hear another album from them, they lived a lot longer than she did and put out more catalogs of music, where I feel like Aaliyah's catalog is kind of limited because she was so much younger. So I would like to have her what her sound would have been like, because at the time she was putting out music of the millennium where it was new to like lay like 2 and 3 levels of vocals over tracks and stuff. But like, I wonder what it would have been like to hear her music a little bit more mature.
Yeah, I agree. Aaliyah's a dope choice.
Yeah. But like, cause Michael and Whitney, like, I know what their sound was. I know how they kind of developed, like, you know, and I love their sounds, but I would have loved to hear more music from them as well. But I just feel like, I think Aaliyah died when she was like 23. Yeah, so we really didn't even get to hear from her, because I don't even think she got famous until she was like 14. So
yeah,
I would like to have heard from her.
Aaliyah's a tragic story. The more I think about that story, it's really tragic. Not only her dying young, but the whole R. Kelly thing. It's like, Jesus Christ.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I often think about what her career would have been like if she had lived. And I think people, like, you know, have this very like idealistic view of like, oh, like she was baby girl and this and that. But I think once these R. Kelly allegations and stories broke, and his involvement with her family's involvement in the matters, things like that, I don't necessarily know that she would have had the great public image that she left with. You know, like, unfortunately, and I say that because she is a victim at the end of the day as a minor. Like, it's not like she was making these decisions as a full adult. Like, people around her, several people around her, were taking advantage of her.
Oh yeah.
But the internet is cruel, and you can't predict in the 90s, when there's no social media and everything is hush hush and behind closed doors, and it's on a camcorder, and you can only see this kind of stuff if you got the cassette player or the DVD tape or whatever, or the Blu-ray. You can't predict that stuff is going to go viral, and you can't predict, like, you cannot predict then what happened to R. Kelly now and what kind of image that would have left on her own career, having been affiliated with him in the way that he is, because people still kind of even throw dirt on her name a little bit. Not a lot, because she's been dead a long time and she was popular when she died, but people still kind of throw dirt on her name, like they were wearing matching clothes, like on TV. Like on live TV, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's in her album covers and he's just like around. And it's like, back then people were asking questions, but it was very hush hush. But like today, it's like, Yo, that's really weird. Why didn't anybody call that out? And also, Aaliyah, like, you should have known that that was weird because he's a grown man and you was a little girl. Like, it would have been that, I feel. So I don't know that she would have been as glamorized as people make her out to be now that she's not around to tell her story or to talk about it.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's probably one of the topics we're going to get into.
Oh, for real?
Not necessarily about Aaliyah, but in general.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay. All right.
Question number 4.
Okay. I'm starting to get nervous.
Why are you getting nervous?
I don't know. I just feel like we near the last questions. What is it going to be?
It's not going to be nothing hard. The last 2 questions you got.
All right.
You go to a movie theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get your popcorn, you get your nachos.
Okay. That's $30.
Of course it is. Yes. I just left from the movies and I just experienced that. Yes. What is your go-to candy in the movie theaters?
That's hard. Do I have to choose just one?
I'll let you choose. Let's give you 3. I'll give you 3.
Okay. Sour Patch Kids, Nerds Rope, Snickers. Because I had to have a chocolate in there. That's why I asked. And I had to have something sour.
I'm assuming the Snickers like the Fun Bites ones.
Why are they giving out Fun Bites? You're going to be paying $20 for a Snickers.
Give you like a little bag of Fun Bites. They're going to give you like a whole Snicker body.
Oh, you see me? First of all, what am I paying for? No, okay. It don't matter. It don't matter. Yeah. If I got money to pay for. Now, if I don't have any money, that's what I'm bringing in with me. Okay. That's what I'm bringing in. I don't know. Depending on what's the budget.
Okay. I like that answer. All right. Question number 5. I think this is going to be an easy one, but a thought-provoking one. Okay. And I think it is appropriate for the season.
Nah, I'm concerned.
Why are you concerned?
Because what season? You in Miami. I'm in New York area. Like, what
Black
season?
History Month.
Oh, okay. I'm like.
Last I checked, we're both black. So
don't upset me with no sunshine question. Okay. All right. I feel better. Black History Month.
Yes. All right. What does blackness mean to you?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I do this for a living. Sometimes.
What does blackness mean to me? I think it's a good question, but it's a difficult question because blackness is so many things. I think it is a culture. It is a heritage. It's a history. It's an experience. It's really a way of life. It's so hard to, because blackness is just so many things. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just blackness. I guess it just kind of depends on the context that you're talking about it in. Because like blackness is art and energy and joy and, personhood. And also American blackness is a spirit of having to have a culture of reinventing yourself 24/7. Like, because you just have to for no other reason than survival. We have had to be creative for survival.
Yeah.
But blackness is, like I said, like an experience. It's a way of being. It's a way of living. It's I don't know. It's just an amalgamation of things. I don't know. It's so abstract. That's so abstract that I don't want to. It's hard for me to limit it, I guess.
I think that was a great answer. Really great answer.
I feel good because I was nervous. I'm like,
you killed that.
Black History Month. You're going to be like, where was Sojourner Truth at this time? And I'm like, I don't know. My teachers are going to kill me because I don't know where she was.
You think I'm going to ask you questions I don't know the answer to?
Listen, so let me just say this. This is a shout out to Detroit Public Schools. I went to Detroit Public Schools K through 12. In the elementary and middle school that I went to, and I did not know that all Black people didn't have this experience actually until I went to college and became an adult. At least I went to public school. Detroit Public Schools did such a good job at educating us, myself and my classmates, and Black history. So the school that I went to, Bates Academy, and Detroit is about 80% Black in general. So at the school, in the cafeteria, we had this big, huge wall, and it was somebody had been commissioned to paint a mural of Black leaders and figures from around the world, like starting literally from Mansa Musa, who was arguably one of the richest people in history, even for being a Black man and African. He was one of the richest people in history, to the point that they cannot even calculate his wealth. For example, he took a whole caravan of concubines and slaves and military folks to Egypt and bankrupted the whole place. Like, that's how rich he was, that he was able to impact the dollar. He was able to impact the currency at that time, like to like change the value. Like, that's how rich he was. They had people like him and other leaders from other places all the way up until modern leaders. And I guess that was in the 90s when I was in school, but like, they have modern leaders like Jesse Jackson, Michael, what am I saying, Michael? I don't think they have Michael up there, but they definitely have Martin Luther King. They had Rosa Parks. They had Shirley Chisholm. They had all these Black leaders, and we saw that every day, and I was aware of these people and who they were and what they looked like in color, not in black and white. And another thing, to the school's credit, was we had this thing, and the reason I mentioned the name of my school was because we had this thing every February, Black History Month, called Bates Battle, which was at the school. They would give us basically like Monopoly money, and they would set up this store where you could buy like candy, or maybe in your classroom you could buy like extra credit or all these things. And what it was is that from the 5th graders to the 8th graders used to be able to participate in a competition where the school would give you a list of like 200 or 300 Black history facts that you had to memorize. You can get into like teams of 5 or 6, and it was like a game show in front of the whole school, where whoever had the most Black history facts memorized and pushed the buzzer the fastest, they would win. And every time you would win more Bates bucks, and you could go to, around the school and buying extra credit and buying all this stuff. And even that, to this day, I know so much about Black history and am just so present and aware of Black history, because my teachers, even the non-Black teachers that were present, were so involved in this process and making sure that we understood who we were, that we understood. We had speakers come in, we dressed up like Harlem Renaissance leaders like Zora Neale Hurston, Langston Hughes, and all these other authors and poets, and just every part of Black history, like a lot of things, like inventions, like, what I'm saying, like the gas mask and the traffic light and hair stuff and the iron, and like just all these things that Black people contributed to in American history and culture are still with me today, because the education system, at least at the time, really took the care to make sure that we knew that. So shout out to DPS.
That's real dope.
Yeah.
As a person who grew up in Miami, the hood, we didn't get that. So I am
learning that everybody didn't have that.
Oh, not at all. Yeah. I've told the story before that, we had schools like, I went to Miami Jackson Senior High School, which was cool and stuff like that, but it was mixed. So we didn't really get that experience. And then you have situations where you have, like, which I've said before, Robert E. Lee Elementary School.
I was going to say that because I know exactly who that is. I'm like, why y'all going to school named after him? Y'all lost the war.
Yes. Imagine. And this is not a school, because I remember this very well. This is not a school like in a white neighborhood. This is a school in the inner city that they chose to name Robert E. Lee Elementary School.
On purpose. So you never forget. You always have to say that name. You always have to tell people that you belong to an institution that is named after this person, and everyone knows what that means.
Yes. And I just found, and I didn't realize until I got older, like, I can't believe that was a school name. That was like an elementary school name. That was people just deemed that okay.
Well, you remember how people responded to tearing down the statues, like even tearing down the statues of Robert E. Lee and other Confederate leaders. People were mad about the statues. I know they was mad about the schools.
Yeah, and me being an adult now, I realize I just don't think people were aware.
I learned that because
they weren't teaching it. They weren't teaching it here. They weren't teaching you about the history of slaves and who Robert E. Lee was. So they just like, we're just gonna put this school in the city. We don't know who it's named after. Oh, this is Robert E. Lee, because I never heard conversation from adults say, hey, why is the school named this?
And there's so many other things around named Robert E. Lee as well that is not off to you. You know what I mean? Like there's like, oh, there's a Robert E. Lee Municipal Center, the Robert E. Lee Library, like all these government sanctioned structures around you with the same name. He must be somebody that did something good, because why would they name a school or a building or an institute after him if he didn't? They wouldn't name it after a bad guy, would they? Why would they do that?
Yeah, that's what you think in your head. Like, why would they do that?
Yeah, they wouldn't do something like that because, you know, they're good.
Yeah, so now just the things I look at now as an adult and realize that was kind of off. Like even like the Dukes of Hazzard, that was a show I'd watch as a kid and like, oh, this is cool. How did I see as an adult? Like, why did people let me watch this? Why would people let me like turn this on for me to watch?
Like Pocahontas, like the way that Disney tells the story of Pocahontas. Like she fell in love with a colonizer, and it was great.
That was the story. Like, yeah, come on.
Yeah. No, I didn't realize that until I remember having a conversation with one of my peers in college, and I was just like saying something, and she was just looking at me about Black history, like some Black history facts, and like just kind of rattling it off the top of my brain because again, like I've been taught this like this whole time, and she was just like, I didn't know that. I didn't know he invented that. I didn't know they. I'm like, what are y'all learning at school? But not realizing that everybody did not have that experience. And also, you know, people look down on public schools and stuff like that. And people look down on Detroit as a city. But like also me feeling like, well, clearly your private school wasn't that great because one, we're here together. Two, you don't even know your own history. Like, and you know what I'm saying? And that was still kind of a privileged position to have in that moment. But even so, like in college, I also learned that I also learned this, and I learned this after college. I can't remember exactly when, but the way that education is, and we're starting to see this in Florida with U.S. Governor DeSantis and the whole controversy about the African American AP class, advanced placement classes being removed from the curriculums. What I learned is that school districts, a lot of times, local school districts choose books. In some states, it's the states that choose the textbooks. But the thing is that all comes down to who you vote for in local elections, because some textbooks don't call the Civil War, which indicates that two sides were both fighting over something. They call it the War of Northern Aggression, which tells someone just on the face of it, not knowing anything about it, that the North did something to us and we had to respond. So we really just was responding to something that they provoked. You know what I'm saying? We were provoked. Like that's how you are thinking of this war. In some textbooks, they don't call slaves. They call them unpaid interns, volunteers, indentured servants. They call them everything but a slave, because these alternative descriptions lessen what the impact of that 400 plus year experience actually was. And when you're intentionally making the students ignorant to that and enforcing it as a part of the curriculum, there's no way they're going to really know the true history of America. And I found that out, is that they choose textbooks and they actively choose the curriculums. In Florida, in particular with DeSantis, it was the African American AP classes were part of the anti-woke bill, where they were trying to get rid of critical race theory from being taught in schools. But the interesting part about it is that the Advanced Placement Board, which basically connects with all the colleges to give the credits, like the college credits to the high school students that pass these AP classes, were like, we've never been asked by any state or anybody at all to provide secondary sources for this kind of stuff. We only get asked to provide primary sources. And why is African American history so dangerous or so at risk educationally that we need to have secondary sources? Like everything is already peer reviewed. So it's really interesting. And I feel like, and this is me personally, this is aside from the facts, I just feel like if you have to go to great lengths to hide your history, you must have done something. You've done something. I'm not saying it's bad, but you definitely did something. And why don't you want people to know the truth? So
Well, since you brought it up, let's get into it. Because do you feel like they're trying to erase our history? And not only erase our history, but make it so.
Whitewash it.
Yeah, whitewash is a great word for it. Just whitewash
Yes.
it, change things. And I think it's important to bring this up because we live in a time where alternative facts are a thing, fake news is a thing, and the people who are usually spouting those type of things are the ones creating it.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard. Like, never before in my history of time where I felt like I had to fact check the fact checkers as I do now.
Mhm.
Like, every time I look at an article now, I'm like, is this real? Let me
Mhm.
go look at 2 or 3 sources before I kind of just verify this story. Like, even celebrity deaths.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
is this person really died just now? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let me check. And then you find out they did or they didn't. And it's just such a wild time where before I felt like there was a time you could watch the local news and you feel like they're being honest.
Mhm.
And now you kind of watch. I think some of that's kind of turning back just a little bit. But I feel like it's almost like you don't know what site, what to trust, and who to trust when it comes to these type of things now.
Mhm.
Because so much stuff is getting twisted and deformed, like you said about the whole AP studies and things like that. DeSantis was making it seem like, oh, they're indoctrinating our children,
Mhm.
and we know getting well that's not the case.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, to answer your question directly, yes, I do think it's a whitewashing of history. I think there's a few different reasons, maybe some of them being true at the same time, maybe some of them being contradictory as well. Um, for that, I think that at least in my estimation, as someone who, as a millennial and someone who's kind of in between generations, where I'm maybe 1 or 2 steps removed. Well, actually, let me say it like this. I'm probably about 3 generations removed from people who were sharecroppers. Okay. And those folks are probably 1 or 2 generations removed from slavery, which means we're still very, very close generation wise to slavery. But in getting away from that generation wise, the older generations are kind of removed from technology. And what technology allows people to do is share information at a speed and pace of which they've never been able to share information before. So all of a sudden, the education that you're not getting in school is being able to be shared around the world instantly. And maybe the education that me in Detroit had as a kid, if I'm getting that information, I'm able to share that with my peers online and it's able to go around like that. And now these kids are being educated on some of the things that maybe they didn't learn in school and they're questioning that. Why didn't I learn that? Why don't I know that? Why am I hearing this? Is this real? And they're starting to question their own education. And just a short example of that is I actually am seeing this a lot where I'm seeing videos of white children who are learning about Dr. Martin Luther King, who are learning about certain Black leaders. And as children are saying, why did white people do this? White people are bad. And then their parents saying, okay, I hate to break it to you, but you white. And then they're like, well, I'm not bad. And then they're like, I know you're not bad. And they're like, I wasn't the white person that did it. And they're like, I know you're not the white person that did it. And it's true. But to me, that shows me that a child is able to understand and comprehend that something very, very terrible and wrong happened here to people that are not white. And I think that when you're part of the dominant race who's trying to preserve that system, not saying that all white people are bad or that all white people are trying to preserve that type of hierarchy, but there are a lot of white people who are trying to preserve that privilege. If you are that person and you see a video like that, you're horrified because that is a direct threat and potential attack to your privilege and your way of living and your dominance in the hierarchy that is, the American social fabric. So we're starting to see attacks on all the institutions and things like that. And to your point about just questioning the facts, if you can create just enough distrust in institutions that people don't know where to get their information from, then you know that people are going to trust potentially the source if they like you. So all you really have to do to share information or disinformation is be likable and find people who relate to you instead of actually presenting them with facts and evidence. And on top of that, they're always going to question someone who is presenting them with something different than what they learned first. So I guess to kind of sum it up, yes, I think it is being whitewashed. I think it's done intentionally and on purpose. And I think that certain individuals who are trying to preserve a social race-related hierarchy are the authors of that. And I think that they're doing that because there is a real threat to that dominance and that hierarchy, especially the more educated that children become.
Let me ask you this. This is probably something I should ask when we were discussing just a second ago. Should we be worried about this?
Worried about which part?
All of
Because
it.
I think we should be worried about it all, but people call me an alarmist. So that's why I'm like.
I'm asking because I feel like we're watching all these things go on and people are seeing it, but they're not understanding the gravity of it. And what I mean by that is like for example, before the elections happened down here with the census and stuff like that, we saw a whole lot of redlining and things like that, to kind of remapping the districts to work in his favor and Republicans' favors and stuff like that. And people kind of ignored it and just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he got one of the biggest landslide victories in the history of Florida. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of silencing the black voice down here. And I see it often. And I think what's more troubling to me is I don't see enough people saying, this is bad. We need to do something about this. Or maybe it's just me, but I don't see enough people speaking up against that. I do see it on more of a national level, because people, and even on the national level, I think they're speaking up more so because there's a fear that DeSantis can become president, and because he is, for lack of a better term, watered down Trump,
or more sophisticated Trump.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. And I think people kind of fear that because he can get people who have those same ideas of Donald Trump to follow him. And unlike Trump, he's not prone to say the wild stuff that
he's
Trump
not offensive. He's not overtly offensive to everybody.
Exactly.
Should people be worried? Yes. Well, I always think people should be worried. And I mean, if you're a black person, you really have to be worried all the time. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is not a point in time where we should not have been worried, because it's always, being black, you're always going to have threats to our existence. That's just what being part of Black American is.
Yes.
So that's that. But I guess more to your specific issue about, voter suppression and things like that. Yes, but I am hopeful. I guess one thing that you mentioned was that maybe enough people are not speaking out. I think that sometimes progress is slow on the outside, but one thing that really encouraged me, or one person I should say that really has encouraged me about that, because as a black person in the North, we have very different experiences of blackness and what it means, and sometimes, unfortunately, and it's funny because you asked me this earlier, like, what is blackness? But part of blackness is knowing what your blackness means in the context of whiteness. And that looks very different depending on where you are. That looks different. A black person that's living in New York City or Connecticut or the Northeast looks very, very markedly different than someone who's living in Florida or Texas or Alabama or Georgia, and looks different than someone who's living in California, So it just looks different. Your black experience is going to be different because the white experience is different in those places, in those regions. But but just getting back to what I was going to say is that one person that encouraged me for places like Florida is Stacey Abrams, because I was a person who, as a Northern Black person, and I have to check my privilege on that too, because we don't have the history that those states have. even though we have a lot of migrants from the South that came up during the Great Migration to places like New York, Detroit, Chicago, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, places like that. Stacey Abrams made a comment that Georgia is not red, it is suppressed. That means that there are people here that are paying attention. They know what's going on. They're showing up to the polls, but it doesn't matter how many people show up to these polls if this place is gerrymandered like it is. Like, so all these 1,000 people show up and these 1,000 voices are only equivalent to one voice in the burbs. Like, you can't, and like without substantial change on higher levels, there's nothing that the common person can do. You know what I'm saying? You elect your officials, but it's only so much that those folks can do. So when she but she, to Stacey's credit, what she recognized and was able to, I don't want to use the word exploit, but what she was able to take advantage of was the fact that if we can increase voter turnout so much in these places where these communities may be untapped and where they're not able to get in touch with their representatives, we can really change things to the point where a place like Georgia, that I think people like myself had written off, like, oh, no, this is a southern state, we're never going to win this, it's not a Democratic state, for all of a sudden for Georgia to even be looking any kind of like, you know, it might be purple or it might be blue, but Kemp has votes in the closet. You know what I'm saying? Like, now you hiding votes and now you're threatening election officials, and now Trump calling people like, yo, I just need you to find me some thousands of, like, now that stuff like that's happening, to me, that says a lot. And that also says to me that states around, and I believe Louisiana also has a Democratic governor, which I didn't think that was possible for a place like Louisiana, because when I think of these states, I think these are deep South slaves. This is the origin of slavery. Like, this is where this terrible history began. And not to, you know, that's not to speak ill of the Black people that live there. Like, I love my folks, but like, these are the origins. So it's different to live there. It's different to go to school named after a Confederate general. It's different to go to where, at least in the North, we got a Malcolm X Boulevard. Now it might be in the hood, but at least we got a street. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're not going to school named after a person who's committed to my death and enslavement. You know, so I guess I say all that to say, yes, people should be alarmed, and I think people should be alarmed and paying attention and vigilant 24/7. But I also am optimistic about where things are headed. What I'm also optimistic about is that I'm on TikTok. Not for the dances, mostly because I sew and I do my sewing stuff, but I see a lot of young people in there. And these kids are really taking the time to educate one another. They're doing the, did you know this? Did you know that? And then I see people, I'm learning more on Twitter than I learned at school. I'm learning more on TikTok than I learned at school. And these kids are educating themselves, and they're taking the time to speak about it and understand it. And why did this happen? And they're questioning the things that adults told them, because they have the ability to do that. They have the ability to fact check in real time. Whereas I guess for older generations who didn't have the benefit of technology, you learned this in school. That's what they told you. That's the teacher. She or he must be telling the truth. And it is what it is. Yeah. These kids are, you know, what is voter suppression? What is gerrymandering? You have progressive politicians like Beto O'Rourke, who's out in the streets demanding justice. After the mass shooting, you're there. You're there at that place talking to these people in the streets because they are your families and your folks. But, you know, on our struggles in particular, I think folks like Stacey Abrams really give me some optimism. Unfortunately, like I said, when you have a gem like that, you're going to get pushback. Like, when you have a Black president, you're going to have the Tea Party. You know what I mean? Like, the white lash to that is going to be so strong because you're challenging those norms. And what happened is that Obama gets elected. First of all, a faction of the GOP decided that they were more extreme than the regular Republicans and that they needed to have a completely separate group. And it just, became progressive. And now it's starting to be, we're learning about history. The 1619 Project is coming out. And they're telling people we're bad. So we're just going to ban that entire history from our schools. And that's what you're seeing.
Wow. Let me ask you this, because I think you brought up some incredible points there. But to switch gears just a little bit.
Sure.
I want to ask you this question. I think this is very important to me. It's something I want to talk about with you, a Black woman, because I think it's
essential. Black women. Support Black women.
Facts. do you feel supported? Because I know, and I asked this
By
question.
who though? By who?
Well, let's start at the base by black men.
Okay.
Let's start with black men. And I asked this because one of the things that bothered me greatly, like I've talked about it multiple times on this podcast, was the whole Megan the Stallion situation with the shooting. And then you had people calling her a liar, then the whole Tory Lanez thing, and then it came down that the trial happened. He got found guilty. Even before he got found guilty, people were calling her a liar. People were like, Meg's putting her in jail, even though it's the state. And then he got found guilty. After he got found guilty, people still was talking crap about her.
Mm-hmm.
It got to the point where people had to hear physical evidence and hear the tape of him confessing to the crowd for people to be like, you know what, maybe we got that wrong.
And even then, they thought maybe he wasn't talking about that.
Yes.
While he's in jail.
Yes.
For the very crime that he's being accused of. Yeah. Do I feel supported? Sometimes. I think that's the most honest answer I can give. I think that when it comes down to issues of race, and I'm talking about black men specifically.
Yes.
Sometimes, because I feel that on issues of being black, that we are on the same page. When it comes down to issues of gender, black men have a privilege of being a male that I don't think is always recognized by men. And in the same vein, I think that sometimes black men think that black women have privileges that they don't have. And I guess what I mean when I say that is when I have these types of conversations with my black male friends, for me, this is kind of what it boils down to. For black women, we're overlooked, ignored, invisible. And when you have those types of negative, I guess, characteristics, associations, whatever you want to call them, you're able to thrive in ways that for black men, the negative characteristics or associations is fear. People are afraid of you, right? So I think on one hand, black men have the privilege of being men in the sense that they can sit in rooms where white men can sit in, that women, or maybe only white women, can sit in because they have the privilege of being male, and that this is a good old boys club. We don't let women in here. We talk about women a certain way, and we're not gonna, women can't be in here. And if we do let women in here, we're gonna have to tidy up our act, or we're not gonna be able to be ourselves, and we're not gonna be able to have a locker room talk, right? Like, I think it's that. But at the same time, I've heard a lot of black men say, well, you all are going to school more than us, and you all are getting promotions more than us, and you all are the most educated demographic, and you all are making more money than us. And what I really hear when I hear that is, no one's afraid of you, so you're able to quietly succeed in a way that we aren't, because people are afraid of us and don't want us in these rooms. So I think that that tension, coupled with the history of black men and women and how the forced family separations in order to receive social welfare benefits and things like that, where black women, because they're invisible, are allowed to succeed in those ways where black men are not able to succeed, even though black men out earn on the dollar, I want to say, black women by like 15 cents per dollar. And I think that gap is slowly changing. And I believe that the gap in education, women in general, but especially black women, are the most educated demographic and are the most able to succeed in that way. I think that black men look at black women and be like, well, y'all doing great. Y'all making more money than us, and y'all don't want to be with nobody that ain't making no more than y'all, more money than y'all, but y'all making more money than us all the time now. So now y'all saying y'all really don't need us, which was kind of part of the problem in the first place, because we weren't even in the homes. So I guess I say all that to say the history of that tension, I think, leads to some animosity. So when fast forward to like the Megan the Stallion trial, people are thinking she is just, I think and I believe it was either 50 Cent or some celebrity basically came out and said, like, I supported Tory Lanez because I did not want to see a black man go to jail. especially not at the hands of a Black woman. And I think one of the mistakes that Megan's PR team made was when she did that interview with Gayle King, and she said that she basically didn't have any sexual relationship with Tory Lanez, and that wasn't the truth. That gave people cover to call her a liar for the whole thing,
Yes.
instead of if she had never spoken about that or had never spoken publicly, or maybe had been a little bit more upfront about the fact that that happened.
Well,
I think
I
that
wanna
that
talk
wouldn't have
about
given
that.
folks cover.
I want to talk about that because that kind of bothered me too. Because let me give another example of that. Meg the Stallion.
Mhm.
She dated this guy, Tory Lanez, or whatnot. Whatever happened, happened. She was the victim,
Mhm.
and her whole sexual history was put out there for the
Mhm.
world to see.
Mhm.
It became an issue of like, oh, well, she dated this guy and she lied about this, she lied about that, and all this. And they kept talking like the trial even touched on that. Well, she was dating all these rappers and stuff like that. You don't get that with Tekashi 6ix9ine. You don't get that with Young Thug, where they're like, hey, Young Thug did a crime. Oh, but look at all these women he's sleeping with. You don't get the dragging out the history of male rappers and men in general like that. The sexual history becomes an issue. And that bothers me.
Yes. For any woman in general, any woman that's going to accuse any man of anything, as a woman, you're acute, especially as a Black woman, you are acutely aware that anything that you've ever done with anybody ever might come to the forefront, and that might depending on who it is and what you did or didn't do, that might overshadow the things that actually happened to you and the whole reason we're here in the first place.
And you know why it felt gross to me when I thought about it? And I kind of realize it now. And I know you can probably attest to these type of things. It felt like how it felt when you watch like rape cases, and how women they're like, well, she was very promiscuous, so maybe she wanted him. Like, why is this? Whoa! It felt gross. And I don't think
I'm honestly surprised the judge let that kind of stuff in, because I didn't think, as far as like the Ben Simmons thing came out and like all this other stuff that came out, that stuff was very inappropriate and I thought extremely prejudicial to the case, because there was no place for that. There was no reason that came out. Let me just preface what I'm going to say with this. I am in no way caping for Tory Lanez, the judge, anybody that I'm about to say, but I'm going to just say, and I guess this is my capacity as a lawyer, albeit not a criminal attorney. If I'm the judge, her sexual relationship with Tory Lanez matters to the extent of motive for why he would do this. Like, why would he, or if he would do this? And the fact that he was sleeping also with her friend, and the defense's theory of the case was, well, the friend did it, not her, because she was jealous over the sexual history of Megan and Tory. And that was the defense's theory of the case. Now, as the judge, you're supposed to make this as fair as possible. And is it also fair to the defendant to say you can't talk about the sexual history? Well, then why the heck did Kelsey and Megan get into an argument in the first place? Well, it was because allegedly Tory made the comment, well, I'm sleeping with both of y'all, and Kelsey, she been lying to you the whole time. That's why the Gayle King interview becomes relevant all of a sudden, is because the jury and maybe the public didn't know that you was doing this, and that it was potentially part of the reason, allegedly, that Kelsey would have done this. Now, we know that's a lie. Okay. We know based on the rest of the evidence, how Kelsey testified, what she testified to, the documents that came out in advance, like the documents from her story, the recordings, like we know, we have a pretty good picture of what happened. But again, sometimes Black men don't want this to go bad so bad that, look at her, she lied, and we can prove she lied because everybody's saying she's a liar. And if she lie about that, what else would she lie about? And that's what's the hard and disgusting part of it, is because she was not there to testify about her sexual history. She was not there to talk about anybody else that she had been dealing or engaging with, because the reality is she was a gunshot victim. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with the gunshot. But if you're the defense and you're gonna throw anything at the wall hoping that it sticks, you got to throw that up there. And I guess the judge allowed what I felt was a little bit too much leeway into that. But it was definitely disgusting and inappropriate for sure. That's the route that the defense chose to take.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was very inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And let me still on the same topic. What do you think about all the blog sites that were reporting complete misinformation about this trial?
Unfortunately, blogs get it wrong every day. Like when Hollywood Unlocked said the Queen had died when she was very much alive, and then other sites started picking that up. And I know this woman on her last leg, because she did die like 2 months later. I know she must have wake up to the news of her being dead and just been like, I know I'm not dead. And it's just, unfortunately, I expect that. And there's no, there are legal ramifications for that. The cause of action being defamation as a cause of action. And when you're a media site, you have to prove a whole bunch of different elements. One of them is falsity and fault, I believe. You have to show that they were wrong and they knew they were wrong in reporting this news. I think that's the standard.
Okay.
Or part of the standard, I should say. But I don't expect that from them. But then again, I'm not a person who gets news or and like you, I don't necessarily immediately believe news from blogs. But the danger is that there's a lot of folks who only get their news from blogs.
Yes.
And when you're hearing stuff like that and you're hearing people report the wrong information, like DJ Academics, who said that who purported to have certain documents and evidence that he didn't have, then had to go backtrack, scrub all of his social medias of things that he definitely said that he tried to act like he didn't say, and fanning the flames of, stuff against Megan. How do you put the tooth back in the toothpaste? Yes. Excuse me, how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube? Like, you just can't.
Yeah, and one of the things I think it was big, what happened was the internet took it and ran with the whole. I think it was Bossip posted it. He was not guilty.
I didn't even see that.
Oh, you didn't see that?
It was hard for me because myself and a lot of people I went to law school with that are actually practicing attorneys, we had a lot different conversations about how this was going to go. So we would be looking at the blogs like,
y'all probably had intelligent conversations.
Yeah. Well, maybe, and I would say semi-intelligent, because it's not like we were the end all be all. A lot of us are not criminal lawyers. You know what I mean? We know civil procedure. We know what's supposed to happen at a trial. A lot of us have trial experience. But the reality is we don't have criminal law experience, so we still can't speak fully intelligently about what might happen. And even if you do have criminal law experience, your practice area is so specific state to state that you still might not know how this is supposed to go. Okay. Because like, for example, like in Georgia with the RICO case with Young Thug, in some states, they don't have Alford pleas. You know what I'm saying? So you need a Georgia criminal attorney to tell you, or a prosecutor to tell you, this is what this plea means in this state, because we recognize that other states don't even have a mechanism like this. And that was, and not to get off topic, but that was in the case of, is Gunna a snitch or not? Like, that was a full,
that was a big
that was a whole thing. So it was just like, but even as a person who's somewhat educated on laws, I'm like, I ain't ever heard of this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he's doing. And I had to educate myself on that. So maybe I had a little bit better understanding than the common non-attorney, but like, I don't know. I'm learning with everybody else. So,
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't hear about this. So what happened?
I didn't know that it was pre-reported that he wasn't guilty before.
Yes. What happened was there was a document that was leaked 2 days before the actual verdict was even placed. The document, it looked like it was like a jury questionnaire or something like that. Mm-hmm. That they write like guilty, not guilty on the charges and stuff like that on it. Mm-hmm. They read the document wrong and thought it read not guilty. So they reported on the document
before the jury.
Yes, the jury didn't deliberate. Yes. So it got out there. It trended on Twitter for like a whole day.
Dang.
That he was
I
not
didn't
guilty.
Even know that.
Yeah, it trended on Twitter for like a whole day that he was not guilty. And then actually people had to come out like, no, this is not true at all. The jury hasn't even deliberated yet. What are you talking about?
Dang.
Yeah, it was bad. And you know, when that happened, the academics of the world were acting a fool.
Of course. But
really
see, that's the thing is that people like academics are not journalists, but people regard them as being journalists because they get these bloggers and blog sites have direct access to celebrities as if they are journalists. And so when you're not a journalist, you don't have a journalistic integrity to fair reporting. You know what I mean? Like you don't the ethical guidelines and standards that journalists hold themselves to. When you a blogger, you just somebody with a microphone like us, like, and you just happen to know people and they just come and sit down and talk to you and you can say whatever you want, just like we can. But like if you're a journalist, you're not gonna make certain claims. You're gonna say allegedly, reportedly, like presumed. You're gonna use certain words that are very clear and intentional about what you mean and how you got your information. You also probably have a duty to verify your information or corroborate the information that you got to make sure that it checks out, instead of being academics with a fuzzy PDF and some words from maybe a lawyer and throw the word allegedly in front of it, not really knowing how to use that. And saying, oh, well, allegedly the gun, he didn't have there was none of his prints on the gun, which was not true. And I saw that a lot. What it was that whether his fingerprints are on the gun are inconclusive. Inconclusive is very, very different than not on there.
Vastly different words.
That's completely different. That is completely different. So, but when I heard that and people was like, his fingerprints weren't on the gun, I'm like, no, we didn't know that. So if we didn't know that, I'm like, that's not what that means. But I hear you. I understand why you're saying what you're saying, but that's not what that means. And I think that the academics of the world and those kind of folks they're not journalists. They're just not. They're bloggers. They're YouTubers. Not even a DJ.
I don't know why you call himself DJ academics.
He ain't even a DJ.
Nah, he ain't a DJ.
It's on brand. I believe that. It's on brand. It's on brand. He ain't mixing nothing, huh? He don't even got a soundboard.
Nah, that cat ain't got no soundboard.
All
right. Can't get him no turntables on nothing. Nah.
I understand that. I definitely understand that. Interesting.
So let me ask you about this. Let's switch gears a little bit before we get out of here. Talk about this on Black History Month, but they'll think this is important because it's rough. Because
Lord,
it's another old Lord situation.
Oh Lord, where's Bernie Mac when you need him?
It's the last time we talked about police brutality.
Oh Lord, I know where this is going. Okay, all right, that's a real one. That's a real one. Yes,
yeah. And it hasn't gotten better.
No.
And in some cases, it's gotten worse.
Yeah. Yes.
What can we do about this? Like, it's troubling because I know I didn't talk about this with you yet. Like, you've seen the Cap documentary that's coming out, right?
Have I seen it? I knew it was one coming out, but I haven't seen the trailer for it.
The trailer for it. I recommend watching the trailer for it. It's very interesting.
Okay. All right.
But he discussed police brutality in that trailer greatly. And the interesting thing about it is, in the trailer at least, he's not talking about Black families. He's showing the police brutality on white and Hispanic people.
Interesting.
And I find it interesting because while we see it as a Black issue, it feels more like this is a
everybody issue
that we're kind of sweeping under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because, like, for example, we had the killing of the young man not too long ago.
Irie Nichols.
please don't look up the video. I implore you.
Yeah, I've already seen it. No, I've already seen it.
I've seen enough of it. Don't. Yeah,
this. Mm-hmm.
It's sad. It's heartbreaking, and I think the whole conversation came up with about it because it was black officers. Is this racism? And I'd like to get your thoughts on that for one. I'll let you go first before I get my thoughts on that.
On whether it was racism?
Yes.
No, I do not think that. Well, actually, it's hard to say because I don't necessarily. When I saw it, I didn't view it in the lens of racism. I should say it like that. I viewed it in the lens of. And the thing is if it had been white officers, I think there might have been an element of racism to it, depending on what the circumstances were. Because I think when someone is an other, it's easier to dehumanize them in a way that when they don't look like you. So, and I guess the same would have been true in the reverse. Like if the victim if Tyree Nichols had been a white person, or if it had been an Asian person or a Hispanic person, I might have viewed that differently, like the layers of that. But not to get too far off topic, I guess when I saw that, interestingly, I was not shocked, just because they were black. And I think that some people were like, oh my God, like black people doing that to black people. I saw that as a gang. I saw that as a gang. Like y'all belong to a fraternity. Like it's y'all and us, y'all being the police and us being the civilians, and you having the authority and us not having the authority, and y'all beating this man to death because you're in a gang. Like that's how I saw it. But to answer your question about racism, like, yes, there are elements to that. Because I felt, and it's interesting if you are watching the show on the show that I'm regularly contributing to, Dig on America. I did a show with my friend Lindsay on Lindsay's Left Angle, and we talked about this the same day that her show just happened to air the same day that the video was released. So we were able to talk about it. So go check that out if you want. But
check it out.
The interesting thing though was that for me, I thought it was so odd that I had seen the photos of the officers plastered everywhere before I even knew what really happened. Like before the video came out, I saw videos of these officers and knew that they had done something really bad. Cause like, why am I seeing all these officers together? So that was the first thing that kind of stuck out to me. I'm like, I know their face, but I don't even know what they did. And then when I saw the video, I was like, oh, y'all did that. Like, that's disgusting. And that's crazy. And they were immediately fired, which I thought was another oddity, because usually the police unions are so strong that they are placed on administrative leave or unpaid leave. And that's part of the, I think the elements of racism, that when there are white police officers, usually there is some type of internal investigation, and then the officers are placed on leave or suspended or what have you, pending the outcome of the investigation, and no immediate decisions are made. I also found out before I knew what happened that these officers had went to jail and bonded out of jail. So I'm like, so they already got booked. You know what I mean? Like there was immediate action, which I just found so unfortunately odd, because it doesn't happen that much.
Yes.
Then I found out that there was a black woman police chief. And then to me, and I had said this on the Left Angle, but to me, I was like, okay, if I'm a black woman police chief, you don't have any play but to fire all these people and immediately put them in jail. Because if you don't, and this video comes out and you didn't do none of this stuff, that's your neck on the line too. And you're the chief, you hire these people, and you're the black woman. And then I was really shocked to find out that this particular group of people, their unit was specifically band together to try to combat the issue of white policing in black communities, where the communities felt that it was unfair the way they were being treated by white officers. Imagine my surprise when I found out that, wouldn't you know, there was a white officer involved, and we never heard of him until like a week after these photos of these black officers were being circulated.
Yes.
So the whole thing was just kind of like different to me. And I couldn't help but to think, even me, even as Black people, like they're still being held accountable quicker. And not that that's a bad thing. Like, I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying as being like, oh, like she's saying they shouldn't have had nothing. Like, no, I think all police officers should immediately get fired and then we'll figure it out. And if you didn't do nothing wrong, we'll let you back in. But like the fact that something was done, I'm like, oh, so y'all can do something about it. Y'all can fire these people. And I thought the Blue Lives Matter crowd was nowhere to be found. I found that to be very odd.
Oh, yeah.
The police union was nowhere to be found. I found that to be very odd. So I'm just thinking, so many of the normal things that would have happened in a situation like this did not happen or occurred dramatically differently than what I feel like I'm used to. And just to kind of wrap this all up and answer one of the other questions you had is like, what's changed? And like I said on Left Angle, and Lizzie mentioned this too, Rodney King was almost an exact same situation, except he didn't die, obviously. Yeah. That was what, 30 years ago? And we're still in the same situation. And Lindsay made a good point, which, because Lindsay's white and she lives in Idaho, where it's very, very racist in certain parts of Idaho and a lot of parts of Idaho. But anywho, Lindsay made a good point, which was, you know, she said when the body cameras and things happened and the George Floyd happened and everyone, the world stood still and everyone, for no matter who you were finally starting to understand that police brutality was a thing in general, and everyone could agree, and no one could justify that man was killed unnecessarily by police. She thought things would change. And when we have this situation happen, which is almost identical to the situation we had years ago, and now it's caught on camera for the world to see, and then nothing happened. To answer your question, I don't know what's going to change. I'm not optimistic about that at all. Unless we defund the police, abolish the police system completely and start anew, or establish a federal body that has oversight of local police. That's the only way that I see it. Other than that, and I don't think that that's going to happen, because I think there will be significant pushback because states' rights, federalism, that whole thing. Yeah. So I don't think that a federal enforcement situation will happen, but I'm not optimistic about it. I don't think anything will change unless, and I hate to say it like this, I really do. And I hope, unfortunately, that no one has to unnecessarily suffer, but it's going to take, in my opinion, for the right person's child, spouse, loved one to be murdered in cold blood for everyone to see, for there to be some type of substantial change. Like, until it's a person that unfortunately is quote unquote important enough for it to, for their death to matter, for them to be a martyr, for them to really be symbolic of all of the unnecessary and unjustified and disgusting and gross murder by police, I don't think it's going to matter.
I agree. I think it's almost ingrained in their system, which is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. Like, even
it's a culture. It's a culture. It's a culture.
It's a culture. The way they treat people, especially Black people, I think they're trained to do that. I don't want to say they're specifically trained to do that, but they're trained that these people are going to cause a problem.
Hold on, and sorry, and I hate to interrupt because I know I just went on a long rant. No, I don't want to, because I really want to hear what you have to say. But I do want to say this. In addition to what you said, if you are a police officer that tries to step out of line and tries to buck that culture, they will go against you. And you're going to be the one that's ostracized in that police department. And you're going to be the one that don't nobody want to work with it. You're going to be the one that got beat up. Like, there was a situation where one officer tried to speak up and they killed him in a training. And when they beat him up, like, he literally died. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is the culture. So it's not even like, it's like blood in, blood out type stuff. Like, you're not about to come up in here and snitch on us. You're not about to, you see us doing something wrong, you're not about to tell on us. And if you do, we gonna jack you up. And Benjamin Crump, Tyree Nichols' family lawyer, and who's represented other high-profile civil rights cases, unfortunately, mostly with the murder of Black folks by police, proposed Tyree's law in Tennessee, which would basically be a law that would establish that if you are a police officer and you see wrongdoing by other police or misconduct and you don't do anything to stop it, you are yourself going to be criminally implicated as if you were a part of it. And that's to target the sheriff's deputies that came on scene and didn't do anything about it. The EMS folks that came on scene and I hope y'all beat them up. Like it's supposed to target those kind of folks that are supposed to also be community workers and supposed to protect us. But it's hard when you call yourself get on the force to protect and serve. I see y'all beating all these people up. I go tell them y'all beating me up. Yeah. What I'm gonna do with that? And I work here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
who is? I agree. Who is watching the Watchmen essentially? Like if you have these people who have all this power and they have the power to do whatever, essentially whatever they want to do, and they have the power to do whatever they want to do because if they do make a mistake, oh, you just take some time off. We'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. There's no consequence for what they do, and that's the biggest problem. Like worst case scenario, you may go to jail or you just may lose your job and you can go. Because we've seen it.
Then you be a civilian. Then we see you working at LA Fitness.
Yeah, not even that. Because there's been some cases where cops have tried to go to other places and get jobs.
Other police departments, and they do, and they do, and they do.
It's just I don't want to say corrupt, but it's a corrupt, broken system.
It is absolutely corrupted.
That
you can't fix that.
That we just kind of let be what it is. Society's just accepted that, okay, this is the thing. Cops just going to beat our asses and we just have to deal with it. And it bothers me greatly because it's almost like, no, it's not almost. It's like how we look at gun culture. It's just like how, okay, we as society has just accepted there's going to be X amount of police beatings and brutalities that's going to cause a death, unlawful arrests, X amount of things that's going to happen to our society. But as long as the good outweighs the bad, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of done the same thing with gun culture. We're like, hey, there's going to be X amount of police not police shootings, shootings in general, shootings at school shootings, shootings in malls, or shootings in concerts, or just mass shootings. X amount of mass shootings. But as long as the good outweighs the bad, we should be fine. And I don't know if I'm okay with that at this point.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say because, like, to your point, the big question is, what do we do? Because here's what I hear, not from you, but just from society. This is a societal discussion, and my estimation is like, are we going to throw out the baby with the bathwater? Are we going to get rid of police because they're so bad and they're killing us and beating us up? But if we get rid of police, who are we going to call when we need police? Well. You know what I mean? And we don't have sufficient community structures, most places, especially smaller places with low resources, to set up a secondary system that's just as strong as this system. And there's already so many substantial ties that the police system has to the local governments. For example, a lot of these police departments get military surplus. Yes. Like they getting tactical gear. They're getting Humvees. Like, you know what I'm saying? Why in a town of 3,000 people do you need 4 tanks? What do y'all expect to happen here? Yeah. That y'all need 4 tanks in addition to all the artillery and weaponry you already have. Like, so it's questions like that. So again, I don't know what to do. Just like even on the gun thing, like I have my own thoughts and views on the gun thing, but here's the situation as I see it. Second Amendment, arguably, and I say arguably because I don't think it says this, but it's just assuming everybody's right that it says that everybody can have a gun. Let's just say it says that. I don't think that to be clear, but let's just say that it says that for the sake of the argument. We're in a situation now where so many doggone people got guns that regular people who would not otherwise have a gun be like, well, how am I going to protect myself if everyone else around me has a gun?
Yeah.
How am I going to not have one? That's stupid. I'm going to bring a knife to the gunfight. Why wouldn't I have a gun? And now your toddler accidentally just got into this gun because you weren't the safest gun owner. Now we have an accidental death. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, and if God forbid you propose the idea of taking all the guns away, then what are we saying? Y'all going to come up in my house and take my stuff from me? What if I come up in your house and take your stuff from you? Then we're on that conversation. So it's like, how do we put the toothpaste back in the tube on that? I don't know how to do that with police. And when people started really progressive in the Democratic Party started that we need to abolish police, we need to defund police, et cetera, et cetera. People was like, you can't use the slogan, you can't use the sloganism, you can't do this, you can't say that, et cetera, et cetera. And to an extent, that may or may not have been true as far as policy and getting your candidates elected on certain other issues, but it's just like, they gonna be beating us up until we defund them, till we stop giving them stuff to beat us up with, till we stop hiring people to beat us up.
Yeah. And it bothers me because I feel like we've gotten to the point where it's become a thing where, and both parties do it. They go to the extreme degree on both sides of it in terms of like, get rid of the police, or no, we need to give police more. But nobody's really touching on the fact like, hey, we ain't even trying to fix them. We're just going to be like, all right, we're not going to make any effort to fix this problem. We're just going to be like, hey, nope, we're going to either give more resources to an insane degree, or we're going to just take everything away.
But I guess the question though on that is like, and you asked this question earlier, is like, who do we trust to oversee them? The mayor? Who's going to oversee the police department? Because we have people that are supposed to do that. The police chief, but under the police chief, y'all just killed somebody on camera. Like, who do we expect to be able to hold y'all? Who's holding y'all accountable, and in what way are they holding y'all accountable? Yeah, because then once we hold you accountable, you're going to turn around and say you got a union. And we can't do nothing because you have qualified immunity. So you are acting in the scope and nature of your job. So we still can't do nothing because you was at work. So now we can't hold you civilly liable.
I've been thinking about this a lot. And the only answer I came up with, and that could eventually work, is the community. Because if you look at it, the people who live in the community, for better or worse, can't be corrupted because it's their community. It's their house you're tearing down. It's their neighborhood. They want to protect it. Government officials don't give a shit because they don't live there. They don't have to deal with it at the end of the day. Police officers, it's the same concept. Chief police, the same concept. But when you have people who live in the community and see, hey, that was my friend's son who just got killed by the police, it hits a lot different. Mm-hmm. As opposed to somebody from the outside. Oh, these cops done fucked up. They done killed somebody. Let's figure out how we cover this up. I think that might be the only solution I can think of. Like, we have to have the communities have police to police. I don't know what that means or how far we can go with that or what can we do to make that a thing.
I mean, I agree. Listen, I'm honestly a person who's willing to try anything. Like, I mean, obviously everything we done hasn't worked. Like I said, like, we are 30 years removed from Ronnie King and we still talking about the same thing. And worse, we seen it on camera this time. We knew what happened. Like, we saw it. And we got body cameras everywhere now. We're looking at every camera and it's still happening. We thought, foolishly, once the police on camera, they're going to start acting right. They be stealing money on camera. Beating people, killing people on camera. Like, it don't matter. They still doing it.
And that's the thing that bothers me, because even if you go back and look at like a lot of these cops that have, like, look, Derek Chauvin, he had all these cases against him, reports of like insubordination and stuff like that, police brutality, and nothing was done about it. Mm-hmm. So how is he having this long history of things and nothing was, and he still has his job? Like, I can't do it. I can't do that at my job. I can't just fuck up all the time. Like, you know what, Dale, you're good.
Here's something interesting. So when I was in law school, we had some race-related incidences around the law school, and the local police department. The local police department did a town hall that I went to. But one, because one of my friends is on. I went because one of my friends is on the panel. And my friend asked the question of the police chief, who was also on the panel, how often are officers, how many officers do you fire a year? Like, let's just say on average, or like, no, he said, no, it wasn't a year. He was like, how many officers have you fired in like the last 5 years? And this particular police chief said like 5. And he was like, my friend was just like, you mean to tell me in the last 5 years, you have fired like 5 people? No other industry has that type of job security. Yes. Like there's no other place you can go where you're almost virtually statistically guaranteed to keep your job this much. And you're also saying people are not really messing up here, which is incredibly difficult to believe.
Yeah.
That's incredibly difficult to believe.
Especially in that line of work.
Yeah, especially in this line of work where your job is usually directly hostile to people in the community, because for whether they're the victim or the assailant, like somebody's not going to want you there. That's why you're there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the whole point. It's because there's a crime or something happening and you're law enforcement. Like, that's the whole point. So I just found that really striking, because to your point about officers having multiple years of complaints against them, and it just being swept under the rug or overlooked, or maybe even worse, don't nobody even care. What do we say? Because if you ask police or police sympathizers, what they'll tell you is this is a dangerous job. We go out every day not knowing whether we'll come back home. And that is true. That is true. You are doing dangerous work. You can be killed in the line of duty. And that's a very noble endeavor to undertake. But at the same time, if you scared, stay at home. Nobody asked you to do this. We didn't ask you to sign up to become a police officer. We didn't ask you to put yourself in harm's way. We didn't ask you to do that. While we appreciate those endeavors, we certainly didn't ask you to beat our ass.
Yes.
We certainly didn't ask to traffic stop to end in murder. We certainly didn't ask. Certainly Tyre Nichols did not ask to be snatched about the car and comply. George Floyd didn't ask for somebody to be kneeling on his neck. Sandra Bland was on her way to a job interview, and then all of a sudden she's suicidal. Like, that's not how that goes. So while I understand that part of it, if you feel that the risk is too great, or you're too scared to engage with your constituents and your community members, you need to really stay at home. You really need to stay at home unless somebody who is willing and able to do this and going to do this right and cares about the community and cares about that. Because for as many bad officers as there are, well, I don't even know how many good officers it is, because y'all getting outshined all the time. And are you really a good officer because you were just doing your job? Does that make you a good officer? Because what if you turned a blind eye to bad officers? Are you still a good officer?
Yeah. What defines a good officer?
Right. Good police work, like stuff like that. Like, so it's incredibly difficult. And I don't think that police have the trust to what you were saying about Kaepernick's documentary. And I haven't seen it, but just going off what you said, like, I don't think that institution, like many other crumbling government institutions, have the trust of the people anymore. I don't think that people don't trust police in general. Like, you might trust them to like come and break up a domestic violence situation. You might trust them maybe to stop a robbery. Maybe. I don't even think people think police really even solve crimes for real. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how often do y'all even find the people that did the crimes? Because I'm seeing y'all locking wrong people up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all not even getting the right person. So I don't know. I don't know. And then when you couple that with like an already jacked up criminal justice system, a jacked up legal system, and I know that because I've learned it, I work in it, and the laws are not favorable to criminal defendants just for the simple fact that you are accused. Okay. I don't know how we fix it, because it's all just part of, and this is a legal doctrine, but it's all fruit of the poisonous tree. Like, there's nothing that's going to be pure that is flowing from a poisonous tree. So, unfortunately, I don't know what to do. I really don't. We do need the community engagement, but like, can community engagement really fix it if we don't have the authority, if we don't have the badge and gun? Because the community can't stop me from getting pulled over. Community can't stop y'all from snatching me about the car because y'all think y'all have probable cause. Community can't stop y'all from thinking that I was a threat to you and detaining me. Community can't stop that because it doesn't. I mean, while it has a collective authority, yes, it does not have the day-to-day individual and operational authority. So that's where we getting killed at.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, a tricky thing that hopefully one day we will figure out, because a change has to come. It has to.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. I really do. Like I said, I'm while I am not particularly optimistic, what I am optimistic about, just to end this on a light note, I am optimistic about the young people. I feel like and I always say this all the time, is that these Gen Z people are really stepping up. They are educating themselves. They are protesting. They are out there. You see the Greta Thunberg girl, like you see them trying to really reclaim their future. They see that they have never known a world without chaos. Okay. Millennials, at least we grew up in a world that was kind of on the beginning / like end of the quote unquote dark ages, beginning of technology, a new digital and enlightenment period. And we thought that the world was going to be like the Jetsons, where stuff was going to be figured out and stuff like that, and it was just going to be better.
Yes.
It got actually probably worse. Okay. And now we're the adults and all up in this stuff. So it's just like, that's wild. But these kids have never known a word. Like, they grew up with Obama, and then it was Trump after that, and it's just been the Trump and all of that since then. So that's all that they know. They only know war. They only know chaos. They know that the adults cannot be trusted. Like, that's what they know. That's what they're learning. The adults cannot be trusted. I don't know how many other generations had that, where you can't trust the news. You can't trust your people around you. You can't trust your teachers. You can't trust your community leaders. You can't trust anybody.
Can't trust your parents.
You can't trust your parents. So they teach one another. And I'm optimistic about that. And I know that there are some drawbacks to the challenges that they have to go through as well. But like I said, these young people are extremely bright, and I think able to figure this stuff out in a way that generations before them may not have. And they are acutely aware of the things that we're talking about, and maybe they are the folks and groups of people that will come up with solutions that didn't even occur to us because we were so deep and entrenched in it. So I'm excited about that. I think that they are creative and bright, and I'm optimistic about those folks.
I think that's the perfect way to end this episode. A little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yes. I'm like, let me bring it full circle, child, because this is crazy.
Yes, it is. You did great, Anna. Let them know where to find you at.
You can find me pretty much everywhere. There Goes Anna, Instagram, Twitter, on TikTok. There Go Anna. I don't know who There Goes Anna on Twitter is, but count your days, girl, because I try to get that handle, and I know you're not even using it right. So you can find me on there. You can also find me Wednesday nights around 10 p.m. EST, 7 p.m. PST on Dig on America. And every now and again, I'm on other people's shows. So just check out the network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
I hope y'all heard all of that, so y'all can contact Anna and not me.
Y'all can, all the people who was saying I was critically acclaimed, please show yourself, because I don't believe Delvin. And if he is right, you will write me and tune in to Dig on America on Wednesday nights.
Yes.
Other than that, I'm not gonna believe him, and I hope y'all will support y'all friend on this show.
No, don't support me. Support Anna.
Support. I would hope that y'all support him in supporting me.
Yes,
because I'm not gonna believe it until I see it. I'm gonna let y'all know that right now.
Yeah, don't start getting shot now, y'all.
I want to show yourselves. I want to know who y'all are. Who are y'all? Talk to me.
There you go. See, I put it out there.
Put this clip up. Talk to me. I want to know who y'all are. He keeps saying critically acclaimed. I don't believe that.
Yes, people DM me.
Show yourselves. Pop out.
If y'all do, don't mention me. Nah, y'all could.
Mention that specifically. Mention. You can't say mention Delvin. Tell me that it was him. Tell me you came from this show, that you listened to the whole thing, that you got all the way through this recording, and that you are a fan of Delvin Cox's show. Yes. I will respond. I can promise you.
There you go.
I can promise you. You see that?
There you go.
I can promise you.
Perfect. As always, Delvin Cox Experience, we are out. Peace.